Okay.
Come in, please. Yes, you too. I'm talking to you. Come on in. I love your costumes. We're going to talk about comics. If I had a lasso, I'd be...
The audience isn't complete until you get a mistake.
Thank you. What's your name? Brittany. It's nice to meet you. My name's TJ. What's your name?
Barb.
Barb. It's nice to meet you too.
Oh, you can tag people on Facebook Live videos?
So we're talking about characters of color in comics. It's a real important discussion.
Yeah, we about to start in like 30 seconds.
We're starting in 5 seconds. Don't go anywhere. Take a seat.
I need air circulation.
Come over here real quick for me and grab a MECCAcon flyer.
Okay.
We sorry to see you leave, but
I gotta keep it moving or I'm going
we
to
understand. I'm hot too. I get
Appreciate
it.
you coming in though.
Your cosplay is dope, sis. All right. Peace, everybody. My name is Maia Crown Williams. I am founder of MECCAcon, Midwest Ethnic Convention for Comics and Arts. We are at Motor City Comic Con. We are representing in full all things MECCAcon at Motor City. This weekend, we have about 13 guests. Today is part 1 of our Black to Black panel, Back to Black, Accuracy versus Acceptance in Today's Comics. Today we have with us Jason Reeves, Steven Harris, TJ Sterling, Brandon Thomas, Curtis Sullivan. So I'm gonna let them quickly introduce themselves first, one-on-one, starting with Jason.
Jason Reeves of 133 Art. We produce comics, we print comics. Our main comics are Kid Carvers, One Nation, and Redcon. I'm Lift Award-winning artist.
Tell them.
I'm Steven Harris, 28-year veteran in comics. Recently I've done Watching the Holmes, Michael Cray, 50s and Comics, Voltron. Way back I did Aztec for DC Comics. Currently I do my own books too, called The Jala and The Fringe, and also am an Eisner nominated artist and Booth Award winner too.
I'm TJ Sterling, president and artist of Ray Comics. My series is called Alchemist. We got 4 issues right now. Sci-fi martial art action story about young characters of color in incredible situations. I've been in the business since about 2015. Worked for a couple companies like Marvel, Dark Horse, and Aspen as of late. And yeah, so happy to be here.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Brandon Thomas, writer and creator. Been making comics since 2003. Written a little bit for everybody, a little Marvel, a little DC, a little Dynamite. My main project right now is a book called Excellence that just launched last week from Skybound Image. Sold out of that first issue real quick, so we got a second print coming to that right around the second issue. And I love making comics.
Curtis Sullivan. I don't have any appreciable talents, but I'm a comic book retailer since 1996, so we're in our 23rd year of selling comic books.
What's the name of your retail?
Vaults of Midnight.
Hey.
And we are in Detroit, is the most recent location. Just turned 3 years old, and we're out of Grand Rapids and founded in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
All right, so one of the first questions I always like to start with this panel is, what was your reason for starting to create comics, especially comics that are centered on Black people? I don't like to say POC because we Black. Go ahead, Jason.
I go first?
Yes, sir.
My reason for creating comics is because I love comics. I've been drawing since I was 4 years old, and I've been loving comics since I was 10 years old, and it's just the perfect amalgamation of every medium that I love. I love to read, I love to watch movies, I love to create things. The reason I started 133 Art was because there was, there was sort of a hole in the industry that didn't have characters, Black characters and characters of color that I wanted to see there. I wanted to be represented. I wanted to see myself in those images. So I said, I can draw, I can create, and I'm gonna create people that look like me inside of those books. And then I learned to print those books, and I learned to distribute, and I learned to market those books, and I've been doing it ever since. So that's why.
Well, I started, my love of comics started, I guess, more wanting to draw. I mean, I was always drawing, and I was always drawing these large one-scene drawings of space battles, because my main influences were like Star Wars, anime like Star Blazers and Battle of the Planets. So, but after a while, I wanted to tell a story with the artwork. So I figured animation was too much work. So I figured the next best thing was doing was comics. So I started drawing comics. I started developing a story when I was in like junior high school, and it dawned on me like maybe somewhere in high school that maybe I'll try this for a living. So I prepared myself for college. Went to school for art for 4 years, and then came out and started becoming an assistant to Dennis Cowan. I was also a student of Michael Davis while I was in college, and those two are the founders of Milestone Media, creators of Static Shock. And I moved on to doing comics professionally, starting with a small company in Long Island, New York, called Personality Comics. Then I did a couple of jobs for DC Comics and Dark Horse, and then went on from there. Highlights of the career at that point were doing a book called The Crush for Motown Animation, and then Aztec for DC Comics.
Amazing. Trying to think, like, I started collecting comics in '86, and I just remember as a kid seeing that there was just a disparity when it comes to the representation of what our people look like on the shelves. There really was like 1 or 2 comics, maybe, and not even being a young kid in the late '80s, I just could still feel that there was just something off about it. So I always loved comics. I always collected them, and I always felt like I wanted to make a story that was different and unique and special. So my story, Alchemist, is kind of the amalgamation of lots of different types of inspiration for various industries: anime, manga, Super Sentai genre, lots of different things that I loved growing up that I thought was really cool. And to me, it just felt like a duty and a responsibility to do something that I thought was really cool and fun for everybody to read.
Okay.
Yeah, like a lot of the guys up here, I also used to write and draw my own comics until I realized that my drawing was terrible and that I should stop doing that. But I kept writing, thankfully. And I was gonna write adventure novels. That's what I thought I was gonna do in high school. And I went to a seminar at a convention like this one with one of my favorite comic writers at the time. And after like 50 minutes, like the course of my life had been changed. And so I was pointed at comics instead of at novels. And I mean, I always loved this stuff. I mean, Star Wars is probably like the most important thing that Star Wars at Grandma's house on VHS was like the most important thing that ever happened to me, and it just completely opened me up, and I started
VHS, everybody.
Yeah, I know. And I started writing in between episodes of my favorite cartoons like Thundercats and Voltron and stuff like that. So that's how I got those were the first stories that I ever wrote. And the further I got into it, the more that I started to really kind of examine the industry as a place where, maybe I could do this professionally. It's like the disparity. I mean, the disparities were already there and I could see them, but once you kind of get inside of it, you see just how really kind of desolate it is, for realistic representations of Black people in comics and other media. And like the guy said, it's a lot. It's a responsibility that a lot of us have taken on, because if we don't do it, then who's going to do it? It's not going to get done. And I just want to try to write something and create something that the 12-year-old version of me needed to see, like something else to be obsessed with that wasn't, Spider-Man or Batman. It's a great characters, whatever. But that's kind of what I'm driving towards. I'm trying to kind of get that kid at the right point, to kind of show people that this is possible, that people that look like us do this, and that there's a way forward.
And with you, Curtis, what was your What was your strongest interest in having a comic shop that is actually diverse? Because a lot of comic shops love to say that they have diverse products, but they really don't, and you all most definitely do. And I always tell people about Bottom Midnight because you all don't just have black comics, you all have black indie comics. You all have black indie comics people never heard of, but it's a wonderful place for them to find out. So what made you all so interested in making sure that you all were a platform for that?
I mean, just comic shops when I was a kid were all men. Was another thing that we noticed early on. We just wanted a shop that represented like nerds in general, just that anyone felt comfortable coming to. So, and it was kind of a big responsibility, coming from Ann Arbor and opening a shop in Detroit. We were extremely mindful of, becoming part of the community and being a welcoming place that everyone felt that they could come into and enjoy. So yeah, I mean, I'm a huge lifelong comic nerd, so good comics are where you find them. So I just roll around in comic books, wherever they are, wherever they're good. I want to have them, I want to read them, and I want to share them with people. So yeah, we think about it every single day. How can we make a shop that represents all types of
Right.
nerds, if you will? And I say that with total pride. I love, as a young nerdy kid, I had to keep my comics secret. I had to keep my Dungeons and Dragons secret, and that's part of it. Also, it's like letting that stuff out of being proud of being nerdy, or being proud of liking superheroes, or whatever it is that you like, and sharing that with other people who love that stuff. So, yeah, it's super important because we think about it every single day, and it's not just the stuff we carry. It's like who we hire, and that kind of thing as well. So yeah, we want everyone to feel welcome at a comic book store, and we definitely are aware that it's not necessarily that way, or hasn't been that way. A lot of people do not see themselves in comic books, or do not see themselves in popular media. So,
or they put them in a specific section.
Exactly right. So
This the black comic section, this shelf right here.
And it seems like stuff's getting cooler, right? It seems like, I don't know, I mean, I'm outside looking in, so
You just politically correct all the time, Curtis. No, it ain't like that at other comic book shops in Michigan. Hell no, it ain't like that at other shops. You just a nice guy. He just trying not to get crazy tweets. He's trying not to get harassed on Twitter, like, Bottom Midnight, fuck Bottom Midnight, look what they said. Okay. One other thing I want to ask you all, what was your process like? Not how did you get into comics, because that's a lame question, but how hard or how easy was your process when you first started getting in the industry? Not even first started getting in the industry, but when you first started actually getting recognized, because all four of you all, as far as indie community, you all four are definitely recognized. So how long did it take for you, Jason, before you met me and I blew you up? Because all praises went to Crowns. How hard was it for you to actually start getting, heavier traffic and more authentic, shut up, Jason, authentic representation in the community as far as accolades stuff?
Hard questions. As far as process goes, man, it was hard to get in. Like Biggie said, man, you got to kick in the door, waving the full forward. I feel like that's what I had to do. Like I had to literally kick in the doors of the comic industry to get noticed, to sell books, to kind of almost feel like I've created something that people enjoy. My process was, I always believed that if I had a product that I can, that I can push, that I can sell, that I put my talent and my heart into, that I could make it happen. And that first thing was One Nation. And in 2012, we started printing and publishing that. And I told everybody about it, friends, family. When we dropped it on the 133art.com site, people bought it, and I had never previously sold a comic before, and we sold, like 100 copies in the first couple months, and that really kind of spurred me on to say, okay, this is something that I can do. I was very excited. And we just went about the business of making more comics. And we knew nothing. We didn't know anything about selling or any of that. Like, I'm a creative first. So I know how to draw, I know how to get colorists or color it myself, you know, lettering, all that. Those are the things that I'm skilled at. But learning how to market yourself social media wise, in person, at shows and stuff like that, those are things that I had to learn and I'm still learning. So that was a rough part of the process. Another part of the process was getting out of the mindset that the mainstream part of the industry was something that was going to be open to me. When I first started doing like comic conventions and shows, you know, they tell you to talk to the editors and, you know, go to your favorite artists and ask them for critiques and stuff like that. And in my experience, those things didn't really push my career forward, didn't really help me. Like, it's good to get advice, and I'm always open to critique, but at the same time, you know, the big guys are busy. They're very busy at their thing of selling comics, and they don't necessarily have or make time for new people in the industry, especially black people, people of color, whatever you want to call it.
Even the black big people don't.
Right. So that stuff wasn't conducive to what I was trying to do. So while every creator, you know, love y'all that gave me good critiques, I take all the good and I dispel all the bad. And now that we've put in the work, we've done shows, we've gotten in front of people, which has been the biggest, best part of the process, getting in front of people and making friends in the industry, people who can actually critique you and actually give you constructive criticism and help you in a way that their experience enriches you. That is what started helping me get noticed and getting to the position I'm in. So as far as getting noticed and selling books, I think it was my camaraderie with a lot of these fine people here, getting into their heads and knowing that, and them instilling their knowledge into me. And experience, man, getting in there and just doing it. Like, yeah, I don't know how to market myself at shows, then if you go to a show, that's when you learn. Trial by error, trial by fire. So that's why, you know, and meeting Crown, of course, the queen of the whole thing.
I'm just, you know,
but
just saying.
Right, queen of hustle, queen of putting us on, so thank you for that. Those are the 3 or 4 things that have, I guess, upped my cachet in the comic book industry, indie, mainstream, or otherwise. So that's me. I'm done. I can pontificate off. Go.
What about you, TJ?
Shit, man. I mean, first of all, I appreciate y'all who just joined us. This is the Back to Black panel, talking about the importance of the Black voice in comics. So appreciate you guys joining us on the fly. Really, for me, it's been consistency. I mean, honestly, and knowing that whatever I came out with had to be quality, it had to be high quality. So I did everything I could to get the skills. I went to art college, I interned at Marvel for a year learning production of the books, how the business worked from the interior, and then applied a lot of those principles to my own work, and then just stayed consistent. So going to conventions, regular basis, I'm literally going, well, most of us, we're all convention season 6 to 7 months out the year. So it's a big, dedication. It's a big step to be able to jump into something like that, but you gotta be confident in yourself and really just know that you got a good product and stay consistent. Because like my man right over here, he's followed me for years. People like that are the reason why we're here. So we just got to be thankful and continue to come out with hot stuff.
I would show him on the camera, but the crowd is so big in here that I don't know if we'd be able to focus him.
You can barely turn your arms.
You know? Go ahead.
So many elbows right now.
For me, I think these guys have covered most of it, but something I want to add is, and it sounds silly, but kind of like the emotional component for me is how to deal with failure, how to deal with kind of like obstacles in your path. Like for me, getting some balance in my life was important because I had several years where this was the only thing I gave a shit about. Like trying to make this comics thing happen, trying to work for, you know, whoever, trying to work for Marvel, trying to get the Spider-Man, the legendary Spider-Man run or whatever it is I was running at. And when it was good, things were great. And then when it was bad, it was like I had just been running to the ground over and over again for months. And one thing that that this will teach you is persistence. And you know, if you are not mentally tough, like you won't be able to make comics, period. And you definitely
Be
won't
in this
able to make
community,
comics,
period.
you know, as a black person at all, because there are a lot of some of the obstacles that you face are intentional, and some of them are just benign. Just, you know, here it's a great example. Most of the editors at Marvel and DC are white men, and typically editors will hire the people that they know, the people that they're friends with. If you have one black friend in your life, the possibility of you hiring me to do anything is very low. It's greatly diminished. And that's something that when I come to you, I have no idea. I mean, you almost want to come up to editors and be like, how many black friends do you have? How many black people do you have in your life that you interact with?
Right.
Like less than 3? That's all right, man. Keep doing what you're doing. But for me, finding balance in my life and finding other things that I cared about in addition to pursuing comics as a career was important, and it kept me going when comics wasn't working out. And you bring those other experiences into it, and it just kind of, you know, it made me, you know, it made me more well-rounded, and it kept me going through the kind of difficult periods, the periods when, you know, you call people and they pretend like they don't know who you are, and you know, it's always easy to get people to respond to you like when you have something like new and hot out, but you know,
Something that Kari Randolph drew.
you go 6 months without a hot book out, and it's just like you've just disappeared. So emotionally and mentally, you have to find ways to survive and sustain yourself and not damage yourself, because what you see a lot of people get frustrated and dejected, and they go to the internet and they tell you. It's like
Stop talking about me, Brandon.
I'm not talking about you at all. But you know, it's just like you have to keep that. It is, you know, it's hard, but you have to keep that out of public view as much as you can, because everything I broke into comics writing a column called Ambidextrous. I used to review comics, I used to interview people, I used to get on my soapbox and pontificate, and I wrote maybe like over 300 columns, and probably 7% of them were positive. Like, oh, I love this comic, I love this creator, I love this, I love that. But everybody remembers that 3%. You know, when I like hurt somebody's feelings because, you know, I said something that I shouldn't have been saying. So you have to be mindful of that people will remember things and they will hold things against you, and especially us, because people are looking for any excuse they can to disqualify you in some way. And you will get a lot of, you'll kind of interact with kind of editors and stuff, and you can tell that there's like a hesitancy and there's an anxiety, because they have this image in their mind of like, oh no, what kind of stories is the black writer gonna tell? Is he gonna get me in trouble with my boss? Like, is it safe for me to give him a little something? Like, what's he want to talk about? Like, I don't know, I'm just trying to figure out a way to choreograph a cool Spider-Man vulture fight. Like, I don't know what the fuck you talking about. You talking about some extra stuff. So, you know, I would just say that for me, the mental part has been the hardest for me, figuring out ways to sustain myself when things aren't going your way. You know, luckily, I've been fortunate the last maybe like 3 or 4 years, I've been doing comics. I've been writing comics exclusively,
Mm-hmm.
which was, you know, took me a long while to get up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of stop and starts. There's a lot of patience, a lot of persistence, and you have to be, you know, you have to be hard-headed. Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to be stubborn because the system is designed to wash you out. Like it's how they get rid of people. Like, you know, how if we put 3 barriers in front of him, like is he gonna be able to clear them, or is he gonna trip and then get, you know, fucking upset and then just go away? So you just have to, like I would tell myself my goal was just to just don't die. You know, just like keep going. Like don't let them kill you and
Mm-hmm.
kind of grind you into the dirt. And you know, you have to realize that there are some people, and not to say that I don't want to make it seem like, you know, people are like out to get you,
Mhm.
because and some people are, but the thing that is most dangerous is not the people that are out to get you. It's the people that don't give a shit, like one
Mhm.
way or another. So, but yeah, I was just that's kind of that was kind of like the hurdle for me, like mentally, like figuring out how to feel like I was still good
Mm-hmm.
when like people are telling you that you're not good. So that's kind of that was really important for me in my, you know, travels.
With you, Curtis, real quick, was it a really hard process to start actually not just starting to open a comic shop, but actually franchising your own entity of comic shops? Because I know different cities have different energy. So how hard was it, and did people give you any obstacles when you decided that you all wanted to come downtown, of all places, and open a comic shop?
No, we were lucky in that regard. I mean, just to go back up to what somebody was saying, we had no experience when we started. We just
Mhm.
it was just all energy. There was no grand plan. We just loved comic books. We didn't have any financial sense. We didn't have a business plan. We got a very cheap location. It was like $300 a month for our first shop. So but it was 500 square feet. It was a tiny little hole in the wall off the side path. Wasn't even quite downtown, but we just liked comic books a lot. And then all the other stuff came, and we just, you know, never quit. Despite the fact that, like, I don't know if anybody remembers, but there was a time when you could write a check, and then that check would take a couple weeks to clear.
Yeah, time,
We
yeah, leeway.
would pay for our comics. The UPS man would come and he would give us the comic books, and we would give him a check, knowing that it would hit the distributor and wouldn't hit their bank for 2 weeks. So we would get these short-term loans that kept us alive in the first 3 to 5 years of being a comic shop. So, and the reason I say all this is because it was the passion and just the love of like the whole thing that propelled us forward. We weren't smart or scared enough to like think about the repercussions of, you know, defaulting on a lease or defaulting on our payments to Diamond Comics or any of this and what that would mean financially, you know. Now we think about it, now it's way more scary. Now we're adults and have children and all this shit. But luckily we were like stupid and young enough to like not care about this stuff.
Stupid and passionate.
Impact, thank you, exactly. You just keep going and keep going and keep, and you know, you guys have all kind of stated like about setbacks or moments where you just like, you know, we almost quit 10 different times. We had a building sell out from under us, and then the new landlord's gonna double our rent. We gotta sign a 5-year lease, and you got 30 days to sign or get out. And we're running around town trying to find a new spot. Couldn't find a spot, found one with 3 days to go, you know. So, but the whole time we're like, do we just quit now, 10 years in? You know, it's been good, it's been up, it's been down. But if you love it, and I think it's, my angle's retail, you know, creative side, it sounds like there's some similarities with, if you love it, if you care about it enough, you just have to just keep, don't be smart, be passionate, be driven and all that. But every new town is been crazy. Grand Rapids is like a whole different world. That's the other side of the state. We went there because we thought, this is when we got smart and got a business plan where we just did demographic research. There's X amount of colleges downtown, and the average income is this, and proximity to this and that would be good for the business.
Shout out to G-Rap.
No.
Grapple snaps, and nobody calls it that. Yeah, it's a great town, but we didn't know anything about it. You know, Detroit was easier. I'm from, you know, the area-ish. You know, Westland and Inkster when I was real young, and then Ypsilanti primarily. So I come out to Detroit when I was younger to go to shows like a lot of people from Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti do. So that we had more of a just like a general sense. There wasn't a comic shop downtown, and somebody said to us that there hadn't been a shop in downtown Detroit in over 20 years. And that was kind of like the final click of like, I'm a Michigan kid, this is a great American city, it's a giant metropolis. How can there not be a comic book store downtown Detroit? That's just crazy as shit. Maybe we can be the folks that can do it. So.
And now the other bookstores don't want to sell comics because y'all have a comic shop, and they like, no, we don't even need to do that anymore. Like, we got bought, like, every time I go in other bookstores, you know, they always pride and talk so well about, especially Mama Janet. Shout out to Mama Janet, Source Booksellers.
Source Bookstore, they've been good friends
Indeed,
with us for
yeah. She loves some damn Water Midnight. Steven, how hard was it for you, or really how well is it for you to transition from mainstream to indie? Like, was that something scary for you to start doing your own property having the comfort?
Yeah, there was no comfort.
It's very little comfort.
Get fired the next day.
Because comics, mainstream comics, it was, I knew at some point I would have to be multifaceted, not be able to not just do comics, but do other forms of artwork like storyboards, concept art, or illustration in general. So I wouldn't have to rely on comics because those guys were so flaky, and editors, you know, artists can be like, yeah, we want you, no, we don't want you, or who are you? So it could run the gamut.
In the span of a month.
Yeah. See, I got something for you, would you wait for it? Then like, oh, no, that didn't happen, I'm sorry. It's the same span of a month, it didn't happen. So I was mainstream from 91 to about 2000, various stages, and then things just got dry. I transitioned into just doing storyboards for commercials. I started, you know, getting some money in that between around 2004, 2007. I started, and around that time, around 2000, I started doing my own book, and I started putting the high gear around the time I was doing storyboards because I was bringing in money, and I could have the time to do my own comic book, which is this one, Brotherly Fringe. And then the internet came along, and I started using the internet more and getting on the internet, promoting myself. I got back into mainstream comics around 2010 with Vampire Huntress with L.A. Banks' book. Shout out to RIP to L.A. Banks. So I got back into it, and I started using social media to promote myself, promote my create own material. And just to the friends there, there's this one, Ajala. And so,
rest in peace to Robert Garrett, our new ancestor.
Co-creator Ajala recently passed away.
His funeral is tomorrow.
And yeah, his funeral is Saturday, May 18th. So, using social media, going to conventions again, promoting myself as an indie creator or just a creator in general, doing stuff that helped me a lot. So, doing shows, doing comic book conventions, putting myself out there. So it's always varying degrees of notoriety. Some people still don't know about me. I've been in the game almost 30 years. People say, people don't know me because it's like a new crop of a new generation coming up who just getting into comics. They have their own frame of reference. So it's like Brandon said, if you're out for 6 months to a year, you might get forgotten real quick. So probably even less now with how fast social media moves. So I make sure to always promote myself and keep myself relevant. So it's work. It's not just work doing the work. It's work keeping yourself relevant. It's work promoting yourself, and it's work networking yourself. So you get to be on top of all those things at various times.
Okay. Real quick before we go to questions, because there's so many people in here. I know it's like a room full of questions we have right now. What would you give advice if you were talking to a 12-year-old who came to your table, went batshit crazy, and wants to make their own comic book next week? What would you give Latasha or Antonio? What advice would you give them?
Advice? Just
Or to
follow what's-
open a comic shop?
Yeah, I'd say follow what's in here. You know, if that's what they really want to do, then just follow that. You know what I'm saying? And entertain every thought, every feeling, every idea, and see what, you know what I'm saying, where the dust settles. Because, you know what I'm saying, comics might not be it, but animation might be it, or storyboarding, or games, or something within that realm of popular culture. Because, again, I think comics are always the gateway for young kids to do more stuff. It's not just, you know what I'm saying, I want to do comics. As you could, again, get into animation. There's so many different people that I'm sure we all know in the industry that started in comics that moved to do something else, because we got friends in animation, we got friends doing this or that, and it's, again, it's just a gateway to more interesting, cool stuff, to movies, especially now. So entertain every thought and idea, and believe in yourself, be passionate, and, you know, make sure your parents, your family, the people that you're with are on top of it. So, because when kids come to my table and they're with their parents, I say, tell the parents specifically, support your kids in whatever they like to do. And, you know, make sure you're fostering that interest in any way you can.
I've always thought, the way I've always thought of it is, it's all comics. Like, in order to get a foot into the industry, man, when I started, I was just freelance. I was a freelance artist. And, you know, I did stuff for like Hasbro and Esquire and all that. And even whenever I approached any of that work, it's always been in service to comics, because that's what I originally loved first. But I always treated everything like, yo, this is gonna take me to, you know, doing a monthly, or this is gonna take me to doing that series that I really wanna do. So yeah, I think it's all comics. But what I would tell the 12-year-old cat or young lady or whatever, I say just do it and finish it. You know, and keep an idea of creating a product in mind, because this stuff is, while it's for enjoyment, it's not necessarily for your enjoyment. Once you become a professional, it's for the enjoyment of your fans and more importantly, your customers. You have to finish that. That has to be complete in order for people to, you know, in order to get it into the hands of people. So, you know, learn how to finish things is what I would tell them. And then, you know, if you love it and you learn how to finish it, someone will enjoy it.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, if you're a comic creator, do a story that you like to do, because this is a hard job, and you want to be enthused to do it, and it's a long ride to complete it, to do a story and do a comic book. And nowadays, when I was coming up, you know, I would just do a 5-page, 6-page sequence of a character from Marvel, DC, and send it to the editor, and mail it to the editor. Nowadays, people do their own properties and put it out online, and maybe get noticed. And their success is based on, can be on their terms, on their character, on their, which can become a property, and you keep all the money. It is something that you created, that you like, and that you have a passion for. So don't worry. I wouldn't say worry about market, because people talk about market. You market what you already created, and that's based on your idea. Try and worry about what other people think instead of what's fun to you. And maybe people will respond to what you're doing, and rather you respond to what other people are doing. And you'll have more fun doing it.
What's the next city that Vada Midnight is popping up in?
Oh, we don't know yet, but we're in the exploratory phase, so I will say that.
They are.
I'll just give you some boring inside baseball. We are trying to figure out how to train people within our organization, because we don't hire management, so we're always trying to figure out who's going to be the manager of the store, because, you know, there's only so many hours in the day. So we're working on our management pipeline right now in terms of try to figure out who can run stores. So we're bringing a person from our Grand Rapids shop out to manage, the general manager of Ann Arbor. We're promoting somebody in Grand Rapids, and then we're trying to the next phase will be training another general manager that will then, when we find this new location, we'll have that structure in place, because that has been the hardest part. Is opening Detroit, we just added another 100% more work to our plates, the owner's plates. Just realize, you know, you can only draw one comic a month, probably, right? 24 pages, right? That seems like, you know, yeah. And every new comic, yeah, it's just, you just can only do so much. So that's it. We're in this boring zone of like trying to get folks qualified to run a vault to midnight, but we don't hire externally. We don't hire outside the shop. So
John Burnham, doing 2 books a month.
Right, exactly. You know, Jack Kirby could do whatever 4 books a month or whatever like this. Yeah, but
nobody's doing that.
What's the address to Vault downtown in Detroit so people know?
But somewhere in Michigan. We're not going to leave Michigan for a while. But the dream would be like a superstore in Chicago, 4,000 square feet, 3 floors, Akihabara, Japan style, nerd palace.
Oh, fancy folk shit. Okay.
So who knows? But yeah.
What's the address to the one downtown so people know? The one in Metro Detroit.
Yeah, 1226 Library Street, and that's just it's right next to the Hudson Building spot. You know, the famous Hudson
It's
Building.
on the bottom of the Z lot, the infamous Z lot. You know, so okay. One last question. Keep it really short. What is your main title that you either own or you're working with or you have about to come out? Jason.
Kid Carvers, Engineers of the Impossible. It's about Marley and Charlie Carver, basically 2 8-year-old mad scientists who solve mysteries in their neighborhoods with their gadgets and their super brains.
And they focus on STEAM.
Yes.
Because I'm super blackety black, so I say STEAM, not STEM, because it started with STEAM and people decided to take the A out and turn it into STEM. But the Honorable Marcus Garvey started
When I
STEAM.
mention Carvers, I always wait
You
for
understand?
Crown to make that distinction.
Exactly. Exactly, because folks don't know that Marcus Garvey started that.
What I'm working on now is a book called Indigo Clan. It is a metaphysical martial arts book created by a man named Lyle Nagasta. He's out in Oakland, so that's what I'm currently doing. And I have other projects possibly lined up for other book publishers, but nothing signed yet, so I can't talk about it.
And what did you just finish doing a run with DC with?
I just finished doing a run for DC with Michael Cray. Have you here? Yes. 2 volumes of Michael Cray. This is volume 1 right now.
And he has volume 2 downstairs also for sale.
The run is completed in November, so there's 12 issues or 2 volumes, 6 issues each, which I just completed in September, and the run finished in November of 2018.
And this is my comic book, Alchemist. It's actually my first flagship title right here. Sci-fi martial art action story about a young kid of color that has a latent superhuman ability that could potentially save the human race. And essentially he's being pursued by 4, biomechanical warriors from the future that actually want to steal that power for themselves. I've got 2 other books in production right now that are kind of behind the scenes that are the follow-up to this story. We're 4 issues in, and we've got another 3 issues that are in production. Once we finish with issue 6, we have a spin-off series featuring Ticina, which is the main female lead character right here. So we've got a lot of cool stuff going on. You can find all my information on raecomics.com, RAEcomics.com, or downstairs at the C block.
Go ahead, Brad.
I want to mention my .coms now.
Right.
I'm writing Excellence. Excellence is my main focus right now from Skybound Image. First issue just came out, sold out. We have a second print of the first issue in stores June 12th. The second issue of the series will be in storage June 19th, which is also Juneteenth. Happy scheduling accident.
That ain't no accident, brother.
Yeah, that'll be my main focus going forward. I have a couple of pitches out that I can't really elaborate on, but one of them, I did a book called The Many Adventures of Miranda Mercury.
That's right. That's
several
right.
years back.
That's right.
And there may be some very exciting, positive movement on that front.
Okay. All right, well, I definitely want to thank all my brothers for coming in here, stunting on these hoes all day. Thank y'all so very much. I adore y'all. If anybody has any questions, you all can form a long line, starting right there with your questions. Does anybody have any questions? What about you, brother?
When writing and creating, and you're using other influences, how do you really, without, I don't want to say plagiarize, but how do you use that influence without feeling like you're plagiarizing? Say it that way.
For me, I try not to, you don't plagiarize the material, you plagiarize the feeling. Like you plagiarize the emotion that you're trying to like evoke, which is a much kind of a safer route to take. So you don't take a scene from something. Remember how you felt about that scene. Analyze that scene. Determine like what about that sequence spoke to you. Like for instance, one of my favorite action sequences of all time is Return of the Jedi. Luke on the plank and signaling the R2 for the lightsaber, doing the flip and putting his hand up, and the shit just comes down. There's just something about that, the feeling of that, what it is the audacity of that moment. Because we've been watching this movie, right? And Luke Skywalker showed up in the black costume. He's knocking people on the wall, and he's just like talking shit. It's like, wait a minute. The last time we saw Luke Skywalker, he was getting the arm cut off and jumping into the void. Like, who is this man? Yeah. Who is this man, and where did he come from? So that's like the type of, I always try to work towards the moments. Like there are like moments coming up in excellence that I'm just, oh shit, I cannot wait for people to get to this scene. Like I cannot wait to, to land that line. And, for me, that's all. I'm always about that feeling. Like, what is it about this scene? Like, what kind of qualities about the characters, about the situation are appealing to me? And in this case, it was kind of like, it was like the no-win situation combined with general confusion. Like, wait a minute. Now, what's going on? This dude is just showing up, just giving my friends, I'm gonna blow up this shit down. And they didn't believe him. And then, he is just like casual. I just love the casualness. Just him standing on the plank. Give me this shit. Come on, it's over. It's over. I'm to the end of this right now. And just to me, just that hand. The hand and just waiting for the saber to fall into, I was like, this is amazing. Right. This is the most amazing thing that I have ever seen. So, I would say to steal the feeling and the emotion and the excitement, and don't actually take the material. But I think that if you're honest with yourself, you can feel where the line is. Like you can feel where the line is, where you're like, okay, well I'm just taking the shit and like changing nothing about it. I think if you really slow down, you can feel like what's too far. You can feel like when you want to kind of take the spirit and the intent of something, but not actually take the thing.
You want to, and there's a thin line between like plagiarism and like homage. It depends on your intent. There's a scene in One Nation where I kind of borrow from the emotion of two things that really inspired me, like The Matrix and Preacher. There's a scene when Neo finally knows that he's the one, and Morpheus kind of, they all recognize, oh wait, he's beginning to believe. And there's a scene in One Nation where Paragon is hoisting a helicopter over his head, and like he sees these soldiers are about to die, the helicopter's falling, he runs up the building, he catches it, and he says, I got you. And it's kind of like, I got you to them, but also I got you to myself. Like he's beginning to believe. That emotion that I felt when I heard those words in that story, I was trying to convey that in that particular scene. But in minutes after, when he's like, letting the helicopter down, the guys are looking at it and they're like, they're like seeing like a black super soldier in front of them. And they're like, holy crap, what's going on? And they like, give the bad guys hell. And he walks off kind of like, like now he's the one. He feels it. And he goes, "You got it." And that scene is like a homage to a scene in Preacher, in I think it's the volume 2 is called Until the End of the World, and Jesse finally becomes, in my opinion, Jesse Custer at that moment. He deals with his family. He's dealt with this big, like the dude that raised him, who always beat him. He finally besties this guy, and he finally talks to John Wayne again. You know, there's a whole big thing about John Wayne and Preacher, and John Wayne tells him something like "walk the walk" or something, and Jesse walks off like, "You got it." And I was like, I have to homage that scene. Like, I have to do something cool. Like, after you fully realize who you are, what I want to convey is that now I'm like swagged out. You know, you got it. So you know the line internally, and sometimes you can pull some stuff in, you know, from other things and still, you know, skirt that line. So.
It was it's a quiet scene. It's a scene of like two or three characters in the foreground looking in the distance. They were talking. And the way it was composed, I thought it was dope. It just reminded me of a comic book. And I used it in the Fringe, but it was like it said it was a flash before during when their land was invaded, and they're about to throw down for their supposed last stand. And so I just wanted to capture that scene of these parents about to throw down, so their group and their son can survive, and they will hold off the incoming army. And I just wanted to have a quiet moment before the shit breaks loose. And I thought that scene was really dope on how they composed the scene. Except in his scene was still, the two characters were silhouetted. I drew them out, but it's from the back. You don't really see the faces. I want to keep the faces kind of not seen in that moment, but still have it drawn out. I wanted to get some of the cultural elements of what they were wearing, and kind of contrast it with that time period before the invasion and after, whereas it's a lot different 30 years after that scene takes place. So yeah, so it's a fine line, and it also I would say something silly, but it's like you see something that's flipping color purple.
Real quick, because I know we.
Yeah, like real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think about comics in general, it's a derivative of something that someone's seen, or there's an homage to something. Think about Superman. You know, okay, Superman started out as an homage or kind of a sample of like the old school strongmen that would wear the S on their chest, in the circus lifting heavy stuff. Or you see Spider-Man, and it was, you know, they kind of took that luchador mask from the Mexican wrestlers, and they were inspired by that look of it to create the mask. You know what I'm saying? So there's always something in real life or something like that kind of inspires, I think, comic books. And I think that, like, as long as it's done tastefully, you know what I'm saying, that it makes sense and it's a natural evolution, it becomes something completely different. And I think specifically for my book, like I didn't really see any American comic books doing a Sentai-esque genre type character that was outside of a regular Power Ranger book. Now, when I put my books out, there weren't any Power Ranger comic books at the time. Now they've obviously come back full swing, so that's pretty dope. But really, for me, I wanted to do something completely different, flip that, what people are used to seeing, but also slide in other elements of Eastern culture, which I, personally influenced me because I did a lot of martial arts growing up. So there's lots of little DBZ and moments in there, which I love. And there's lots of little manga, Berserk or Guyver, or moments in there that people love, that I love. And so I kind of throw that into my books. Back to Steven's point, you got to do something you love that you can stand, you can be interested every single time you draw it.
Okay. All right, well, I definitely want to thank y'all so much for attending our TED Talk. And I appreciate you all. And tomorrow we have another panel, as well as Sunday. I think tomorrow is at 2:30, but don't quote me. I don't know, but we'll figure it out. But thank y'all so much. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.